It's another must-win game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Are we going to go through this every week? Probably. I'll tell you why today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Right on. It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. It's guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you to the everydayers for joining us here on Locked On Jaguars. And we're going to discuss some very interesting things today. We're going to end this show today by talking about how confidence is a fluid thing, and it shouldn't be. It should just always be what it is. But for some reason, confidence with the Jaguars happens to change from a week-to-week basis. When they figure that out, they'll have a lot of stuff figured out. Do a side-by-side comparison with the Chicago Bears that are kind of where the Jaguars were 3 or 4 years ago when the Jaguars had the number 1 overall pick starting as a rookie. We'll discuss that. But first, we're going to begin with another must-win game and why that has to get to the point where it stops. It won't be this year. They have 4 losses. Every game is going to be a must-win game from here on out for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It just is. The reason why this is a must-win game is for a number of reasons. Long-term, the reason why it's so important is because there's a daunting schedule coming. I think they'll probably beat the Patriots next week. And I hate to look ahead, but the Patriots are a really, really bad team starting yet another rookie quarterback who has not had the benefit of playing the way Caleb Williams has already had the benefit of playing. So I do believe, and I do think the Jaguars will, at the very minimum, go 1-1 this weekend. So that means they'll be 2-5 going into what I consider a gauntlet after they return with 5 teams that people really consider playoff teams. And it's going to really determine, in my opinion, their entire season. And they'll have to win the majority of those games. They'll have to 3, if they lose to the Bears or the Patriots, I think they'll have to win at least 4 of those games to make the playoffs. If not, if they win them both, maybe they can go 3-2 and still survive with 6 losses, but then they'd have to run the table after that. But if the worst happens and they lose both games, oh my God, it gets really, really hard for this team to even think or contemplate about the long-term goal, and that was to make the playoffs. And then they have to have everything go right for them down the stretch. Now, we've seen them actually do that before. Like every time they needed something to happen in 2022, it happened. Well, we've also seen it happen the other way when they were in the lead at 8-3, and then every single thing that had to happen for them to fail, well, that happened too. So now we're in this position where who the Jaguars are, who their identity is, and how we feel about them and how fans feel about them, well, it changes too much. It shouldn't be a week-by-week thing. You know what I mean? This is not a situation where, are you confident in the Jaguars? Yeah, I'm confident. And then they lose. Are you confident? No, I'm not confident. It shouldn't work that way. But it's another must-win game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Here's what's going to happen if they don't win Sunday. And I hate talking about negative stuff and negative hypotheticals, but I want to be on record bringing this up and talking about this way, just in case I have to come back here for a postcast at about, I'd say about 12:30 on Sunday, because they play at 9:30 in the morning. And I don't want you to hear something for the first time. I want you to know that that we've talked about it before, that we've discussed certain things before. So for me, if Sunday comes and they don't win, all of the goodwill that was built this past weekend will then be looked at it differently. When the Jaguars beat the Colts, they had an offensive explosion. Trevor Lawrence played the best game of his career. Trayvon Walker played the best game of his career. Tank Bigsby played the best game of his career. Brian Thomas Jr. played the best game of his career. These are all draft picks. These are all people that this team has wanted to succeed. The offensive line for 2 straight games have played their best football that we've seen. And it's allowed one of the things to come true that Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke both spoke about. And that is, well, once they're out there together, the offensive line, and they're healthy, and it's the same group, because they had only been together 1 game last season because of suspensions and injuries or whatever, you'll get to see them as a whole, and this will be who we really are. So the Jaguars, at least offensively the other day, because they have a lot of injuries in their secondary, at least offensively the other day, the Jaguars actually showed you a blueprint of exactly what the Jaguars wanted you to see. They wanted you to see all of those guys playing well, including Trayvon Walker, who's on the defense, by the way, lined up with their play calling that has been so much maligned, and their process and whatever it is, and whoever's calling the plays, whether it's Press Taylor, Press is calling the plays, but the program that they have put in place, every positive thing that they wanted to convey about who they are as a football team, at least offensively, showed up last Sunday. And it's almost, they didn't say it, but it's almost as if, based on the way people responded to me on social media, it's almost as if folks were saying, see, that's what Trent has been trying to build, Wig. See, that's what Doug was talking about. You know? So you don't want that to go away. Because if they lose a game right after that to a team that should not be where the Jaguars are in terms of their program, they got a rookie quarterback, they got a coach that was almost about to get fired, okay? They had the number 1 overall pick. A team like that shouldn't be able to sit side by side with the Jacksonville Jaguars and then all of a sudden make you feel like you're behind, if you know what I mean. The Jaguars should be ahead of both of the teams that they play in London. And if they lose to them, the first thing that you'll say, and the first thing that'll come to mind is, yeah, last week they only beat the Colts because the Colts didn't have Jonathan Taylor. Or last week they won that game only because the Colts were banged up and they had a 39-year-old quarterback in the game, even though I think Joe Flacco playing probably helped the Colts more than Anthony Richardson would have if he played. But that excuses the truth doesn't matter when the lie is real entertaining. And it'll be entertaining for people to say, yeah, man, that wasn't about nothing last week. The Jaguars go over here and score 13, 16 points like they've been doing all season. You know what people are going to say? Yeah, it's done. It's cooked. I'm already getting mailbag questions, and I'll go through a couple of those things in segment 3. I'm already getting mailbag questions saying, who's your top 3 GMs? I ain't even ready to have that discussion yet. I'm just not. Because, there's just so much meat that's going to be on this bone tomorrow or Sunday when this team plays, because it's going to tell you a lot. Now, if they do win, that gives them especially if they play well, and some of the people that I just mentioned, if those folks play well, that'll give them 2 straight weeks of, okay, now we might be on to something. And then there's the expectation that they're going to beat the Patriots. So people will start to feel good again. I hope we can get to the point where confidence isn't such an ebb and flow issue with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to talk about this side-by-side comparison and what I actually mean by that, because it's not necessarily apples to apples. It's a little bit different with this game that we have this weekend. We're going to discuss that more here as we continue on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% annual percentage yield on invested cash, receive 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Now, look up the stats for Justin Jefferson and see exactly how many yards you think he's going to get every single week. That's an easy one. What about Jamar Chase? Cincinnati has to throw the ball a lot. I would think Jamar Chase would be a more than on your selections, but you have to make that decision for yourself. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On NFL, LOCKEDON NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com. All right, segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Talking about this being a must-win game for Jacksonville in London versus the Chicago Bears for a number of reasons. They've lost so much this year that the one win that they had felt so good. I want that feeling to keep going. I don't want the Jaguar fans to go back to feeling like, oh, here we go again, man. Here we go again. They're losing again. And then we start to fire Doug Peterson talking. Then we got to get rid of Trent Baalke talking. We got to start about the fact that, oh, well, they need to fix the offensive line a little bit more. All of those negative conversations that I don't actually mind having with y'all, if it's the truth. But I wanted to sit here and say, okay, where are the Jaguars in their development? Because in 2021, and we try to be graceful when we do this because that was the Urban Meyer year, but 2021, that's when they picked Trevor Lawrence in the first round. And they were starting from scratch. Now, the Bears were a little bit different. And the reason why is because the Bears had the number 1 pick because of an atrocious trade by the Panthers the year before, where they got Bryce Young, quarterback that's standing on the sideline. The Bears got DJ Moore, and then the Bears got the pick that ended up being the number 1 pick because Carolina was so awful. So the Jaguars earned their number 1 pick that year when they picked Trevor Lawrence. The Jaguars were terrible, right? So this is a little bit different. That's why I said it's not quite an apples to apples comparison, because the Bears had the 9th pick. Their own pick was the 9th pick. So they had some infrastructure and they had some pieces that were already maybe a year ahead of where the Jaguars were when the Jaguars picked. Because like I said, the Jaguars were using their own pick, which means that they were bad for real. The Bears weren't great, but the pick that they got belonged to the most terrible team in the NFL, which was the Panthers. But still, even if you give the Jaguars a year head start, or the Bears a year head start, my bad. Give the Bears a year head start on the Jaguars. The Jaguars should still be, they are now 4 years into their development. And I say 4 years because this is Trevor Lawrence's 4th year. And even though Urban Meyer was here for the first year, Trent Baalke was the GM. So in terms of their build, in terms of who they are, in terms of the structure that they have, this should be an interesting matchup to watch, because now you have to factor in they have a young quarterback. The Jaguars have a young quarterback. Both teams have coaches that people don't know about, Matt Eberflus and then Doug Peterson. There's a lot of trepidation in both fan bases about those coaches. The GMs, both GMs, are people, even though I don't think the Chicago Bears GM gets as much flack as Trent Baalke, and rightfully so, because he's actually gone out and gotten a lot of players everybody wanted. That doesn't necessarily mean he's better, but to go out and get guys that were no-brainers that everybody else thought were good moves, I get it and I understand it. But a side-by-side comparison will tell you a whole lot. One of the other side-by-side comparisons that you'll have is the Detroit Lions when the Jaguars play them later on this season. And the reason why I call that one is because a couple of years ago, they were in the same spot. They were actually in the same spot. The Jaguars picked first, Detroit picked second. That's when the whole Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson situation and debate started to come up. So there's some games where they'll really have a chance to line up and be measured against another organization that was in a similar situation than them. I think this is the first one. I think Detroit is the next one. I'm not going to include Houston because even though that's a good one, and we've already seen that, the Jaguars have played Houston really tough the last two times they played them, and they split with them. But this one is the one because of the dynamic of the number one overall pick, Trevor, as well as Caleb Williams. That's going to be something that folks talk about. That's going to be something that people harp on. A lot of the marketing about the game, a lot of the promotion about the game, you're going to see folks really lean into that. And I understand it. He can't let that kid outplay him, or the defense can't let that dude play better than the Bears defense allows Trevor Lawrence to play. At some point, you need to see some separation, man. At some point, you have to be better than the teams that are picking high right now when you won 9 games 2 years in a row. You have to, because if not, folks are going to say, well, what are we doing? What are we doing if a team with a first-year quarterback that picked number one overall can beat the Jaguars? What are we doing here? We should be on third base and they should be on first base. How come they're beating us to home plate? That is going to be something that I'm going to talk about if the Jaguars don't win. And now, if they do win, I'll point out that they are a little bit ahead of not only the Bears, but teams that are just like that, or teams that are similar to those situations. Basically, if you get a head start to build a house, there's no reason why the dude building his house next to you, who started out 2 months late, needs to be finishing his house before you get yours finished. People don't need to be moving in his, and the houses are probably the same size, but that's the point that I'm making here. You can't get passed up by somebody who just started. If you're the Jaguars, not 4 years into a build, you can't do it, because that will lead to the bigger question of asking, okay, now is this not if Trent and Doug are bad or not? And I think if people have that determination already made in their mind, there's nothing I can do about it. But I can tell you what it will say. If you can't be ahead of where those guys are right now, what makes us think you can actually get us to the next level? It's not about how good or bad they are right this minute, the coach and the GM. It comes down to, are you the guy to take us to the next level? Like, you got us to this point, but now we're getting passed up by people that were behind us. The fact that it's an interconference game even makes it worse, because if they lose, because the NFC is considered right now an inferior conference to the AFC. The NFC is inferior to AFC. The AFC has more dominance. So there's the thought that maybe outside of the top 2 or 3 teams, that one of the worst teams in the AFC should be able to beat one of the middlings in the NFC. We're going to see. We're going to see. The game is Sunday. The game is in London. And it starts at 9:30, so that means that we'll have a postcast 30 minutes after the game is over on Sunday, before all the other action starts, and you'll have your answer one way or another. Why is this confidence thing so up and down? We know the answer here in Jacksonville, but I'll tell you, where they have to go and where they have to be for that to not be an issue, and then I'll answer a couple of mailbag questions. We'll do that in just a second here as we complete Locked On Jaguars on Friday. Today's sponsor is FanDuel. That's right, man. I got you to let y'all know about FanDuel. I hope y'all having a good time. I really hope y'all having fun on FanDuel. Even though the Jaguars aren't winning very much, you can still win some money. That's right. If you start the season with a big return on FanDuel, you'll do it because they're America's #1 sportsbook. And once you make a wager, if you're sitting there and you're looking at the game and you got a hunch, because there's some things that you can do while the game is already going, you don't have to leave your page to go check those stats and to view live play-by-play and so much more. You can do it on the same page where you make your bets, and that makes it really, really convenient and an enjoyable process, especially if you're at the game and Wi-Fi gets sketchy and you have to keep trying to go back and forth. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed also when you place your first $5 bet. That's right, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com today. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Sunday game in London between the Jaguars and the Chicago Bears starts at 9:30 Eastern time. Make sure you get up, rise and shine. Like my coffee cup says here, my coffee cup says rise and shine. You have to rise and shine real early on Sunday, man, to get yourself together. Don't be eating chicken wings at 8 o'clock in the morning either. And hot dogs. Eat some breakfast. Make it a brunch. Have some fun. It's going to be fun for me to watch the game. I enjoy watching teams and figuring out where they are in their development. I love to – I've always told the people here on Locked On Jaguars that I look at the game in a way that I want to say, okay, show me what you've been working on. Show me your best combination. What you got. The thing about Jacksonville, though, is they tell you every week that this isn't who we are. And they've been telling you that because they're 1-4. Last week was the first time you really saw them as a representative of exactly what they claim to want to be, at least offensively. I mentioned it. Trevor Lawrence played well. Brian Thomas Jr. played well. They had success in the running game. Offensive line kept Trevor clean. Game plan looked really, really good offensively. Nobody complained about play calling. Trayvon Walker did his thing and basically wrecked the game. And shout out to Chris Long. Chris Long did a video on Trayvon Walker, and I've been asking people, all week, just somebody please say something. Chris Long said it was more than a sack. Said Trayvon Walker saved and wrecked that complete game for the Colts. This is the kind of stuff that I've heard often from people that really, really do watch tape and understand the game, but nobody ever wants to talk about that. But confidence with the team here is fluid. Like, you could be confident today and then not confident tomorrow. And it's their fault. They haven't given you a lot of reason to be super, super confident for a sustained long period of time in a while. It shouldn't be that way. Your confidence in the long-term success or prognosis of this team or diagnosis of the team shouldn't be, it shouldn't waver. It shouldn't be something that, okay, it's high today, okay, it's low tomorrow. It's high today, it's up today, it's down. It's that way because they have been so inconsistent, and they have never really, outside of this is the first time in 10 games, I can guarantee you, first time in 10 games, they have been complete games because they did it for almost 3 quarters in Miami. And then all of a sudden, it's like the last quarter, they forgot how to play football, right? Like they forgot who they were. It's like they forgot what their face looked like as soon as you moved the mirror. You should know what you look like without looking in the mirror every day. And the Jaguars just seem to have this identity crisis that they play like they don't know who they are. And then they come out and play one way, and then they come in afterwards and tell you that's not who we are. That's not who we want to be. And I don't know why it keeps showing up in games, because that's not how we practice. Eventually, those excuses run out. Eventually, those things are just not true. And at some point, you are exactly what we see on Sunday. Jaguar fans hope that what they saw last Sunday, at least offensively, is exactly who they are. Because confidence in your team, you could see the Chiefs. The Chiefs will lose a game, and the people go, they'll be all right. They'll fix it. It was just a blip on the screen. They're complaining about being 5-0 because all 5 games have been ugly. You see where I'm coming from? That's the consistency that you're so used to winning that there's a way you want to win. You don't just want to win; you want to win a certain way, and they're striving for that. But at least they're 5-0. Those people are thinking about a championship. They don't think about these games. These games are just a hope that at some point this team can build up what it needs to be a championship team. Jaguar fans want the Jaguars to play a certain way because we just want to understand who you are every week. If you're going to be good, be good. If you're going to be bad, just be bad. And we can figure that out, because if you're bad and you're just bad, then that means they'll make changes. But if you're going to be bad and then all of a sudden you're going to be good, then that provides hope. So this game right now is going to tell me whether y'all need to continue with that hope, or if you need to think about retooling. It'll be interesting. It'll be real interesting for me to find out what everybody thought too. It's like, do y'all want them to win? Do you want them to win? And that gives Shad Khan some feelings that, and this is one of my mailbag questions too, but I'm just framing it a little differently. Yeah, they'll be all right. We can hang in there. We've seen glimpses of it. Or do you really want the layers to be peeled back and for people to see exactly what it is, and then force his hand to make a big difference? One of the mailbag questions from JRan85 was, who are your personal top 3 GM candidates if Balky is let go? That's a really, really good question. I haven't thought a lot about it. I've been a Mike Bradway fan for a long time because I've heard some things about who he is as a scout. He's been a part of the Eagles and the Chiefs organizations forever. I just want people to understand and get the process. Whoever it is, though, I would potentially, whoever it could potentially be. Folks want to go and grab the cat from Detroit, the assistant GM from Detroit. I understand. But remember, I don't know how happy people are in Tennessee right now with Rand Carthon, and he was the assistant GM in San Francisco. So just be careful thinking that, okay, if you like the way something's run, you just go get the next dude. Be real careful with that. That doesn't necessarily always work. So I don't know, man. I haven't really given too much thought into that, because I've been trying to really give the benefit of the doubt to the coach and the GM, to Doug Peterson and to Trent Baalke, and not really put that into play so much this early. I've been trying to let them get theirs off so we can really figure out who they are. And the perplexing part of that is, I do this for a living and I study this team every single day, and even I can't get a handle on it right now. And usually when you can't get a handle on something, it's something that don't need to be handled, right? Because it just is what it is. But we'll see. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Make sure y'all wake up every day. Well, you got to wake up Sunday every day, but you can wake up every single day here too on Locked On NFL, and make Locked On NFL your second listen. A double dose of football, a double shot of espresso early in the morning from the madman Tyler Rowland, and then slide on through to the barbershop with me in the middle of the day. We use the local experts to know your teams like no one else, to give you comprehensive football coverage that you can't get anywhere else in a very entertaining form on Locked On NFL. Make sure you check us out on our Locked On NFL page, as well as wherever you listen or hear podcasts. Get your brunch ready on Sunday, man. We'll be here with a postcast right after the game, 30 minutes after the game. So make sure you tap in to Locked On Jaguars. Good luck. I hope the Jaguars win, man. I hope they win, because if they don't, we're going to have to bring some heat when we get back and intervene or convene here on Sunday. Until then, you guys take care. Have a very, very nice weekend. It's a little nippy outside. I don't know what Milton did when it passed through here, but it brought some cold weather with it. Y'all take care of each other, and I'll do the same.